Before the story begins, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know. What time do you usually watch videos? And don't forget to suggest the next story or content you'd like to see. Story 1. The bedroom fan that called out at 3 a.m. I used to think my apartment was the safest place in the world. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. A one-bedroom unit on the third floor of an aging brick building in a quiet neighborhood. The walls were thin, but I liked the muffled sounds of life drifting from my neighbors, the occasional laughter, a television too loud, footsteps on the stairs. It reminded me that I wasn't completely alone. At least, that's what I told myself. But the truth is, I started living there during a period of isolation. My work-from-home job meant I barely left the apartment, and nights stretched into long silences broken only by the steady hum of my ceiling fan. That fan was old, mounted above my bed, with 3 wooden blades that wobbled slightly whenever it turned. The pull chain jingled faintly, a sound I eventually associated with comfort. The fan became my white noise, the heartbeat of my nights, until one night at exactly 3 a.m. when the sound changed. I woke up not because of a dream, not because of any sudden noise, but because I thought I heard my name. Whispered, drawn out. I lay there, frozen, staring into the dim room. My fan continued to spin overhead, blades slicing softly through the air. I told myself it was my imagination, a trick of half sleep. But then, clear as if someone was standing above me, I heard it again. Daniel. My blood ran cold. It was unmistakable. Someone, something, was whispering my name, and it was coming from the fan. I sat up, staring at it. The blades rotated lazily, casting faint shadows across the ceiling. The pull chain clinked against the metal base. The hum filled the silence. I told myself that maybe the fan was rattling in some weird way. Maybe the sound just resembled a voice. I turned on the bedside lamp, flooded the room with light, and sat there staring at the fan for what felt like an eternity. Nothing happened. Eventually, exhausted, I convinced myself it was all in my head. I turned off the light, lay back down, and tried to sleep. But just as I began to drift, the voice came again. A whisper. My name. From above. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, I laughed it off. Sleep deprivation can make you hear things, right? I tried to bury myself in work, but as evening settled and I looked at that ceiling fan, a strange dread filled me. I considered turning it off, but the summer heat was unbearable without it. So I left it on, and again, at 3 a.m. sharp, the whispering returned. This time, it wasn't just my name. It was fragmented sentences, low and breathy, barely distinguishable. Daniel, it's cold. Daniel, don't look. I pressed my pillow over my head, but I still heard it. The voice wasn't inside my ears. It was inside my room. My fan had become something else, something alive, something that knew me. The following days blurred together. I barely slept. Every night at exactly 3 a.m., the whispers came. Sometimes it was just my name. Sometimes it was garbled words. Once it laughed, a broken, rasping chuckle that didn't sound human. I recorded the fan on my phone, but when I played it back, there was nothing but the steady hum of the blades. No voices, no proof. I tried replacing the fan, but the building manager told me the wiring was old and complicated. He said I could get an electrician if I wanted, but it would take weeks. Weeks I didn't think I could survive without losing my mind. One night, desperate, I decided to confront it. At 2:55 a.m., I sat upright in bed, staring at the fan, waiting. My chest felt tight, my hands clammy. When the clock ticked to 3, the whisper came like clockwork. Daniel. My throat was dry, but I forced myself to speak. Who are you? For a moment, the room was dead silent. The fan spun, the chain clinked faintly. Then, almost gleefully, the whisper responded. You know me. The words hit me like ice water. I jumped out of bed, flicked on every light, and grabbed my phone. I called my sister, babbling about voices in the fan, but she just told me I was overtired, paranoid. You need sleep, she said gently. Turn the fan off for one night. I hadn't even considered it. I was too afraid of what might happen in the silence. But her voice calmed me. That night, I left the fan off. I lay in the stifling heat, sweating, listening. At 3 a.m., the voice still came. No fan, no blades turning, just a whisper in the suffocating silence. Daniel? I don't remember much after that. I know I ran into the living room, turned on the TV, left all the lights on. I refused to go back into my bedroom until the sun rose. For the next week, I slept on the couch. The whispers didn't follow me there. They stayed confined to that room, bound somehow to the space where the fan hung. But every morning when I passed my bedroom door, I felt watched. On the seventh night, I woke on the couch to find the fan's chain lying across my chest. My bedroom door was still closed. That was enough. I broke my lease the very next day, packed my belongings into boxes without even going back into the bedroom. I moved into my sister's place temporarily. She teased me about being scared of a ceiling fan, but she stopped when I showed her the chain. To this day, I don't know what it was. A ghost? A hallucination born of isolation? Something older? Something that used my name because it wanted me to acknowledge it? All I know is that it always came at 3 a.m., and it always knew my name. Story 2. The abandoned motel fan that knew my name. The motel had been closed for almost 15 years when I pulled into its cracked, weed-riddled parking lot. I hadn't planned to stop there. It was supposed to be just another leg of my cross-country drive, an overnight stay at some budget chain along the interstate. But my GPS had rerouted me down a county road after an accident blocked the highway, and night fell faster than I expected. By the time I saw the neon sign, half burnt out and flickering the words Sunset Pines Motel, it felt less like a choice and more like inevitability. There was no front desk, no glowing lobby, just dark windows, peeling paint, and silence thick enough to press against my skin. But I noticed one door at the far end slightly ajar, a dull light seeping through. Against all logic, I parked. The inside smelled of mildew and dust, but the electricity still worked. A ceiling fan hung above the bed, its blades turning lazily, as though it had never been turned off. I figured some drifter or squatter had wired power illegally, but I was too exhausted to care. I dropped my bag, sat on the sunken mattress, and stared up at the fan. That's when I heard it. At first, I thought it was just the motor struggling, the soft groan of metal scraping against itself. But as I listened, the sound stretched into syllables. The fan's creak bent into something disturbingly familiar. It said my name. Not once, not twice, but over and over. Drawn out, whispered through the churn of the blades. Ali! Ali! My body went rigid. No one knew I had stopped here. My phone was dead from hours without charging. I hadn't spoken my name aloud since I'd left the last gas station miles back. Yet here it was, carried on the low groan of a dying fan. I convinced myself I was exhausted, hearing patterns in noise the way people hear voices in static. I lay down and closed my eyes, but the fan didn't stop. The whispering grew clearer. Eli, don't go. Eli, stay. I snapped upright. My chest was tight, my skin damp with cold sweat. The room suddenly felt wrong, as though I'd walked into a place waiting for me long before I arrived. I stumbled to the door, ready to bolt, but when I pulled it open, the parking lot was gone. Instead, there was another hallway stretching endlessly, lined with more motel doors, each one closed, each one humming faintly with the same droning fan. I slammed the door shut and backed away. The fan above me had stopped spinning. The blades hung still, but the whisper remained, louder now, more distinct. Eli, why did you leave us? I shook my head. I don't know you, I whispered, though it felt absurd to respond. The shadows in the corners thickened. The room seemed to shrink. And then I remembered a story I had once read about a fire in a roadside motel 15 years ago. Guests trapped inside as smoke poured through the hallways, the old building collapsing around them. Dozens dead, some never identified. Stay with us. The fan croaked again, the words twisting, no longer a whisper, but a command. The door rattled behind me. Handles turned. Footsteps shuffled in the phantom hallway. I lunged for my bag and phone, praying it would spark to life. Miraculously, the screen flickered on with 3% battery. Enough to see one notification I hadn't noticed before, a saved photo I had never taken. It showed me, lying in the bed of this room. Eyes closed, the fan overhead. Except in the photo, I wasn't alone. Figures stood around the bed, charred, hollow-eyed, their mouths open wide as though chanting my name. I bolted, out the door, into the night air that smelled of smoke though there was no fire. The motel behind me seemed to dissolve into darkness the farther I ran, until there was nothing left but the sound of turning blades fading into silence. When I finally reached a gas station miles down the road, I looked back. There was no motel, no sign, just an empty stretch of asphalt swallowed by weeds. But that night, when I tried to sleep in the back of my car, I heard it again. Soft, rhythmic, impossible to ignore. The sound of a fan turning slowly above me. And threaded through it, my name. Story 3. The family heirloom fan that wouldn't stop whispering. When I was 8 years old, my grandmother gave me something strange as a gift after my parents moved us into our new house. It wasn't a toy or a book or anything you'd expect to thrill a child. It was an old ceiling fan motor, heavy and scratched, wrapped in brown paper. "It belonged to your great-grandfather," she said, her voice steady but her eyes distant. "It should stay in the family. You'll understand one day." At first, I didn't understand why she gave it to me at all. It seemed broken, useless. But years later, when my parents remodeled the upstairs bedrooms, they installed it in my room at her suggestion. It was large, brass with long wooden blades, carved with a pattern of vines. Once installed, it didn't look old. It looked regal, like it belonged to some forgotten era. The first time I turned it on, I noticed the sound immediately. It wasn't the ordinary hum of an appliance. It was low, uneven, almost like someone speaking just beneath the threshold of recognition. I brushed it off as a quirk of its age, but after a few nights, I realized the fan seemed to produce actual words. At first, it was my name, a whisper, faint and drawn out, Ethan. The first time I heard it, I snapped upright in bed, staring at the fan blades as they cut the air. Nothing else moved in the room. My parents laughed when I told them, "It's just old, honey. The motor's probably grinding." But it didn't sound mechanical. It sounded deliberate. Weeks passed, and the whispers grew more articulate. One night, it whispered, "Don't go to the attic." I had never been to the attic before, barely even noticed the hatch in the hallway. Another time it murmured, "Stay home tomorrow." Each time, I tried to dismiss it, but curiosity gnawed at me. I started writing down the things it said, keeping a notebook hidden under my mattress. The problem was, sometimes the whispers were right. Once, when it told me not to go to the attic, I ignored it, climbed up anyway, and immediately fell halfway through a rotten plank, scraping my legs so badly they scarred. Another time, it whispered that I should stay home, and that very day, a car accident happened on the route I would have taken to a friend's house. It knew things it shouldn't. By the time I was 16, I had stopped telling anyone about it. My parents thought I had outgrown my imagination. The fan, however, never stopped. Its voice became clearer, more urgent and darker. "He's watching you through the window. She's lying to you. Don't trust him." Sometimes I would wake up at 3 a.m. to find it already spinning on its own, blades turning in the still air, whispering directly above me. One summer night, the whispers changed. They weren't warnings anymore. They were commands. "Open the door. Walk outside. Follow the shadow." I resisted at first, but the voice became insistent, layering over itself until the words filled my skull. I remember standing in the hallway barefoot, not even sure how I got there. I only stopped because my mother appeared at the bottom of the stairs and screamed when she saw me, eyes wide, arms stiff like I was sleepwalking. I told my grandmother about it when she visited that year. She went pale. She wouldn't look at me at first, but when I pressed her, she finally said, "That fan belonged to your great-grandfather. He was a difficult man, cruel in ways we never speak about. After he died, strange things started happening around it. I begged your parents not to install it, but they didn't listen. I thought maybe it would be different for you." Different how? She wouldn't explain. That night, I dreamed of a man I'd never met, a tall figure with sunken cheeks, eyes sharp and hungry. He was sitting in my bedroom chair, the fan spinning slowly above him. He never spoke, but his lips moved, whispering in rhythm with the fan's blades. When I woke, I heard the exact same whispers in reality, drifting down from above me. The notebook I had kept was nearly full by then, covered in the fan's messages. I flipped through it desperately, looking for answers, and I realized something chilling. Over the years, the whispers had grown less like warnings and more like manipulations. The accidents I avoided, the suspicions it planted, the decisions I'd made, all of it had been guided by its words. It wasn't protecting me. It was controlling me. The final straw came the night it told me, "You don't need them anymore." I woke up to find the fan spinning faster than it ever had, humming with an almost violent energy. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, urging me to do something unspeakable. My parents' bedroom door was right down the hall. I ran instead. I pulled a chair into my room, unscrewed the bolts, and ripped the fan from the ceiling with shaking hands. It crashed to the floor, sparks flashing, the blades bending. But the whispers didn't stop. The fan lay broken, twisted, but the sound lingered, crawling through the room. Ethan, Ethan, Ethan. I shoved it into the attic that same night and nailed the hatch shut. My parents thought I was acting out, but they didn't ask questions. I never told them the truth. I just prayed that if I ignored it long enough, it would fade. Years later, when I moved into my own apartment, I thought I was free. But sometimes when the air conditioner hums or the vent rattles late at night, I swear I can hear it again. My name, stretched thin and hollow, as if carried on invisible blades still turning somewhere in the dark. Whispers in the dark, carried by the hum of a ceiling fan, are not something you easily forget. Whether it was a child hearing their name in the dead of night, a traveler confronted with a voice that should not have known them, or a family heirloom that seemed to breathe secrets from the past, these stories remind us that even the most ordinary objects can become vessels of dread. The next time you lie awake, listening to the blades turning above, ask yourself, what if it's not just the fan keeping you company,